Hello everyone, Science Viking here, and it's time to start the final leg of our journey. The first step is, now that we have all 4 Lord Souls, we talk to Frampt. Let's go wake him up.
No, I'm fine. Well and wide awake. Do not treat me like an old withering snake.
Oh, I know, old snakes, takes them a while to wake up.
I am pleased to see you well. Is it something urgent?
Let's try talking to him.
Beings who possess these souls have outlived their usefulness, or have chosen the path of the wicked. As the primordial serpent, I implore you to defeat them and claim their souls. Let there be no guilt. Let there be no vacillation.
Well, now that we've defeated them, it's time to head to the Kiln of the First Flame.
Very well.
Wait, no, Frampt.
Stay still for a moment.
Frampt, no, I can use the bonfire. You don't have to do the let's hope that I can find a place to shower in the Kiln of the First Flame. Ugh. Ugh. Well, we're here at Firelink Altar. Offer souls to Lord Vessel. You can offer any Lord Souls that you have at any time, but this doesn't happen until you offer all 4. There is one other thing we need to do before we can actually proceed to the final boss, and that is reverse hollowing one last time. The reason is because, since we've completed Solaire's side quest, we can summon him. Also, I'm going to change up my equipment a little bit. I have the Spell Stone Plate Ring equipped, but I want the Flame Stone Plate Ring. The final boss does mostly fire and physical damage. He's also vulnerable to fire. And those are Black Knights. I always got the impression, when we walked through this area, I don't know how this... And we're in the Kiln of the First Flame. I don't know how this connects to the lore, if at all, but I always got the impression when we walked through that we were traveling through time. Either to the future or to the past. Maybe I'm completely off base, but that's just the sense that I get from this. Also, the only enemies in this area are Black Knights. His reaction times are just a little too good. Alright, just orbit around him with the shield up. Hollow Soldier Shield helps a lot with these fights. The Heater Shield works too, which is the Warrior's starting shield. But the main thing about the Hollow Soldier Shield is it's pretty easily available to everyone. But yep, those mini-boss level enemies that didn't respawn, that were a serious threat if you stumbled across one at the wrong time, they're the regular enemies now. And yes, they respawn. Okay, that's not something sneaking up behind me, that's just thunder. Great. To try and explain what's going on, at least to the extent that I understand it, I believe the 4 Lord Souls were taken from the First Flame in the first place, to grant great power to the mortals that possessed them. The Witch of Izalith. The Witch of Izalith, Gwyn, Nito, and then actually the Furtive Pygmy, whose Lord Soul we still don't have. The First Flame, they began the Age of Fire, and the First Flame continued burning for a long time without the Lord Souls. However, many years after the events of the opening cutscene, the First Flame began to die out, leading to... That was how the Curse of the Undead came into existence. At least that's one interpretation. And the world as a whole began to just kind of decay in response to the First Flame dying out. This would eventually result in another Age of Darkness, like the Age of Darkness that happened before the events of the opening cutscene. However, in order to prevent this and prolong the Age of Fire, Gwyn actually sacrificed himself, throwing himself into the First Flame. However, he gave his Lord Soul up by handing it off to others to create the 2 bequeathed Lord Souls that we received. Seath's and the ones belonging to Seath and the 4 Kings. Oops. Back in a second. Alright. I'm mostly back to where I was. I've spent another humanity to reverse my hollowing again, because I need Solaire for this. But, to continue with the story, so Gwyn divided up his own Lord Soul, and obviously didn't reclaim the Lord Souls belonging to Nito or the Witch of Izalith, and then threw himself into the First Flame while in possession of no Lord Soul. This did keep the First Flame going for a while. But at least one interpretation is that the reason for what we're doing is that the First Flame, and the idea is Gwyn is actually the fuel for the First Flame, trying to keep the Age of Fire going for just a little longer. One interpretation of what we're doing, however, why we had to gather the Lord Souls, is that one interpretation of what we're doing, though, and why we had to gather the Lord Souls that I've heard, that I actually kind of buy into, is that the First Flame needs the Lord Souls in order to work properly. That when the people who when Gwyn, Nito, the Furtive Pygmy, and when Gwyn, Nito, the Witch of Izalith, and the Furtive Pygmy claimed their Lord Souls, they used the power of those Lord Souls, along with some help from Seath, to defeat the Eternal Dragons. And without them defeating the Eternal Dragons, the Age of Fire never really would have gotten started. But that by doing that, they started the process of the First Flame dying down. Ooh, a full Black Knight set. And that Gwyn sacrificing himself in order to fix this wasn't enough because he doesn't have a Lord Soul. What we're doing is taking all of the Lord Souls and giving them back to the first flame, because essentially humanity doesn't need them anymore. And now we see a summon sign. Touch the summon sign, and summon Solaire of Astora one last time. I'm glad we saved his life. There's actually debate, though, over whether or not whether or not you should save him. And if we look, we can actually see into what will be the boss arena, the first flame. There's a couple more Black Knights who we're going to have to deal with. We have Solaire helping us now, though. It's a lot easier to take out Black Knights if you double team them with Solaire. Also, yeah, the Black Knights here drop Titanite chunks of various colors. So if you need anything other than Titanite slabs to upgrade your equipment, this is the place to get them. Alright. And this is the final boss fog. I will be back in a moment. I'm going to start a quick fresh recording file for the actual boss fight itself, so alright. 1 sec. Take one last quick drink, switch to my great Chaos Fireballs, and head through. It's been a long road, and this is the final boss. Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. The main hard part about this boss fight is that Gwyn is unbelievably fast. I have actually never beaten him without help from Solaire. Because you see, when he's focused on just me, it's all I can do just to defend myself. In order to fight him, I have to wait for his attention to be on Solaire. But the fight's a lot more manageable if you double team. So Solaire and I are essentially trading his attention back and forth. And he's down. But yeah, when Gwyn is focused directly on me, I generally don't have enough freedom to counterattack. Soul of Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. That is not a Lord Soul, actually. That is a Boss Soul. You can use it in your next playthrough to create either the sword that Gwyn was using, or, if you are a member of the Warrior of Sunlight Covenant, the Sunlight Spear Miracle, which gives you the spears that Gwyn himself used to defeat the Eternal Dragons. Now, to end the game, you link the fire. Doing so will show the final cutscene and the end credits, and then we'll start you in a new playthrough. Before I do that, I'm gonna... But, anyway. So, yeah, that's how I deal with the boss fight with Gwyn. Is I summon Solaire, and that way Solaire and I kind of take turns fighting. Because you saw, I did not have the opportunity to counterattack while he was attacking me. This is going to be a challenge, because I'm planning on doing a playthrough with another character that won't have Solaire backing them up. Anyway, by linking the fire, we are bringing all of the Lord Souls, except the one for the Furtive Pygmy, back. And the idea is that that will restore the First Flame. But the truth is, it's never really revealed whether it does or not. It might not. And we have the option, if you go for the alternate ending, to not link the fire. But, we've come this far. Let's do this. And now, we become what Gwyn was. We become fuel for the First Flame. in order to keep the world going for just a little bit longer. The other ending is to defeat Gwyn, but not replace him. What that means is that the first flame will go out, causing the Age of Darkness to happen. But the idea is that if the Age of Darkness does happen, then another Age of Fire will happen again in the future. Essentially, just continuing the cycle. But there's actually debate currently on... There's debate currently among the fans still about which one is correct. Whether the ending that we got of linking the fire is the good ending, or whether the ending in which you don't link the fire and instead bring about the Age of Darkness is the good ending. And in fact, at some point in the future, maybe when I'm a bit better at Dark Souls, I will probably do a playthrough as a different character in which I get the other ending. I'll do it as a completely different character build so I have stuff to talk about throughout the whole playthrough, but I may well do that. But anyway, so ends my first full Let's Play project. I personally had a lot of fun doing this. I actually really like Dark Souls. It's one of my favorite games ever. And I discovered it quite a few years after it came out, and I pretty much just fell in love. And I have honestly really enjoyed this. It's been frustrating sometimes. Bed of Chaos, I'm looking at you. And Capra Demon, I'm looking at you even more. And there were a few times where I honestly wondered if I could manage it, but overall, I actually really enjoyed doing this game. I'm really glad I did this. And no, this is not going to be the end of my stuff. I do have another long-form project that I'm planning on doing that will actually start relatively soon. I'm probably going to start recording for it shortly after I get this video up, and the recording shouldn't take very long. That project, I'll announce that once the credits are over, because I want to actually show the full credits, because frankly, these people earned it. This is a very good game. But hopefully this playthrough will actually help somebody who is interested in getting into Dark Souls decide that it's worth going for it. And I mean, if somebody who's as bad at these kinds of games as I am can make it through, really, anybody who's willing to learn the right technique, the right tricks, can actually make it through Dark Souls. It's a hard game, and it has a steep learning curve. You have to be willing to learn a lot of stuff, but really, if you want to get into Dark Souls, the main thing I would say is, don't be ashamed to ask for help. Don't be ashamed to read the wiki, and I made it through my first playthrough by reading the wiki very heavily, and in fact, that was a large part of how I learned a lot of the things that I showed in this playthrough, like where you get the Chaos Servant Covenant, the shortcut through, the short route through Blight Town, things like that. The fact that the, Pyromancer is one of the better classes to start as, particularly if you want to use magic. So, don't be ashamed to read the wiki and ask for help. That's just normal for this game. And secondly, the attitude I describe is, especially if it's your first playthrough, no strategy is cheating in Dark Souls. Any strategy that works is legitimate. I mean, you saw me deliberately break the AI of the Demon Fire Sage and deal with the Stray Demon by just walking around the part of the floor that collapses so that I didn't have to fight him. No strategy is too cheap for Dark Souls. Unless you're deliberately doing a challenge run, which I think which is a perfectly legitimate thing perfectly respectable thing to do if you've got the skill for it. But you shouldn't feel like you have to avoid certain strategies or deliberately make the game harder in order to have won fair and square. But yeah, I've enjoyed doing this a lot, and I hope that at least some people have actually gotten some enjoyment out of this project. I feel like I learned a lot about about Dark Souls and about making videos over the course of doing this. And I mentioned this during the video, but I'll also mention this again now. If I do Dark Souls 2, it will be quite a while. I'm not very good at Dark Souls 2. I haven't actually beaten Dark Souls 2 once yet, so I don't really think I have the skill to do a Let's Play of it. Yep. It skips the regular opening cutscene. And I believe skips the narration, too.
Yes.
Oh,
indeed.
never mind. It doesn't skip the narration.
The dark sign brands
But,
the
yep.
undead. And in this...
Okay, I can skip it just by hitting end. We've seen that before. Yep. That's it. And they drop us right back where we were, but with all of the stuff that we had before. So, I can pillage the corpse to get the dungeon cell key. I can use the dungeon cell key. And we're in a New Game Plus. The enemies are tougher now. Can still one-shot these guys, but they give more souls than they used to. And there's the stray demon. Anyway, that's the end for this video. I appreciate anyone that was I'd like to thank anyone who did watch this, and once again thank everyone who was involved in making Dark Souls. This is one of the best games ever. And I will be back with another project relatively soon. My next long-form project is going to be a playthrough of Myth: The Fallen Lords. And if you're one of the about 9 people who's actually heard of that game, more power to you. But don't worry, you'll find out what it is, and it's another one of my favorite games. But with that, I'd like to thank everybody who stuck through this project, who bore with me through this project once again. And this is Viking signing off. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.